up, everyone? 2013 NHL Draft Review. Well, this was the year we picked the GOAT at 21.
That's fun. For as little as the GOAT has done for the team, he's been a very entertaining personality.
168 games is that's pretty good. It's more than I thought he'd ever get to.
That's not insignificant at all, is it?
No, and at the start of the year, I remember saying, he was playing so well, it's like, would you sign the GOAT for a 3 times $1.1 million contract as your fourth line center?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, for sure. And in these times of weird uncertainty, there's we're finding out that people who entertain us are sometimes more fun.
Yes.
than we actually were valuing in the past. But for a fourth line center, I mean, he's been pretty good. Are you drinking a beer right now?
I'm not drinking a beer. I am trying. I'm only drinking once a week.
Oh, okay. So you're kind of on dry island, but once a week you're gonna jump in the canoe and just go for a spin around the island.
Yeah, it's a good analogy.
That's all right, eh? Yeah,
yeah.
I know. It's kind of weird. It's the drinking novelty kind of came and went with the whole COVID, and now it's kind of like just fucking COVID sobriety. It's not a pace that a person can keep up.
Yeah, it's just kind of like hunker down and just ride this wave out for the next however many months we have to deal with this.
Yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of people will look back at this draft and say the Leafs blew the pick or didn't get a good enough player in the first round, right? Because you think of a first round pick as a person that might come in and make more of an impact on your team, but
good PKer though, as Randy Carlyle would say.
Good PKer, and it was Dave Nonis was the GM at the time.
Yep.
And it wasn't a great draft. It wasn't a deep draft. McKinnon went first.
Yeah.
And I looked at the pre-draft rankings, and I found something. I found an interesting tidbit on an old scouting report on the GOAT, and that was that he was actually projected to be around a number 10 pick at the start of the season. And
wow.
then he broke his jaw in season. And he never returned to form after that.
Interesting. Well, yeah, he's a monster of a man.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously old school NHL still likes that. You're 6'6" every day you wake up. So
yeah, and they weren't drafting strictly for speed yet, right?
No, they were drafting a third line, fourth line center who could kill penalties. That's what they were looking for.
Yeah, and you think about what just happened 2 months before this draft happened, and that was the collapse against Boston.
Yes, it was.
And Boston was kind of that team that people modeled themselves around as a tough team. So yeah, they did go for size. And then by the end of the season, when people like Bob McKenzie put out their rankings, the GOAT was ranked right where he was taken. It went right to, he was ranked right in that 21st, anywhere from 18 to 23, depending on whose ranking you read, right? And
he's almost played 200 games, so it's not like he's not a good player.
No, and I'll touch on that too a little bit because there was some here. I sent you that email to you. See those quotes that I sent you?
Yeah.
Earlier, so it was interesting. The Rimouski Oceanic GM said after the draft, he said, "I think he'll eventually be a number 2 center." His understanding of the game is beyond anything I've ever seen. His comprehension of the defensive game, that's something that usually takes years to develop. He is good defensively. He did he played a big role in a Calder Cup championship, and that was predominantly his role. A Calder Cup championship is not easy to win. He said earlier in the year he became our go-to guy for killing penalties late in the game against the best players. He's got a lot of upside. He's one of the safest guys in the draft as far as being an NHL player.
That's a ridiculous quote.
But I think that's kind of, and as I look at this 2013 draft, that's kind of what you got after McKinnon, Barkov, and some of those high-end guys. You were looking for a safe guy. And
but Seth Jones is a stud. Monahan's a stud. Horvat's very good. Like there's a lot. Yeah. There's good players in this draft.
So the top end was good, but there's really nobody in and around the GOAT except for couple picks after them that you said, oh man, just a complete swing and a miss. Because
there's like Burakovsky. Like I think for me, the player that I like looking at now would be Shea Theodore. Like give me Theodore all day.
Absolutely. So he went number 26, and his ranking was in the mid-second round. That's where he was being touted.
He's a BC boy too.
Yeah, and here's kind of an interesting tidbit about Theodore's. I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but this is a sort of his trajectory. Typically, guys who you would think would be Shea Theodore today would have been fantastic all the way up, right? We went with Dez's team to a Tier 3 provincials in Nelson in our Bantam year. And Shea Theodore was playing for Aldergrove. And he was the third best defenseman on their Bantam team.
I disagree. Like, he's a good player growing up. Like, he made Team BC, won a gold medal at the Canada Winter Games. So, like,
but he really blossomed
not like
after.
He come out of nowhere.
But there was a guy. What I'm saying is there was a guy on his team, and I wish I knew his name now. He was like a top 10 Bantam draft pick, and then they had a fantastic female defenseman on their team. And they were kind of the buzz of the tournament. This other guy who ended up playing in the WHL, and he got wrist injuries and surgeries as like an 18-year-old, and his career just fizzled right out. But like what I'm saying is like, so Theodore, he wasn't always like going to be a top 10 draft pick. So like I'm kind of defending the Leafs, saying like they didn't really miss on Theodore, because he was at that moment in time as a 17 or an 18-year-old,
but that's not part of what we're talking about here. It's if you go back and change.
Yeah, that's right. But we're trying to kind of just for the sake of.
You can't be changing the specifics around it.
Just for the sake of not making this a 1-minute podcast, just throwing out some things about the 2013 draft, because I could easily come on the air here and say, "Yeah, we take Theodore," and say goodnight. But
well, no, I'd still like you could go down to a Brett Pesce. Like that was one that I think between him and Theodore, I think Pesce's a hell of a hockey player.
Where did Pesce go? Third round, right?
Like Jake Gensel. Like there's another player you could have.
Yeah.
You could even go all the way down to the 7th round with at least picking Andreas Janssen.
They did.
And like there's a player that I would take over GOAT at 21.
Would you trade? Would you trade Andreas Janssen for Shea Theodore right now?
Yeah, okay. All day.
So it's Theodore's the answer to the question, right?
Well, no. Would you trade Theodore for Pesce? Maybe. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah. But, yeah, so consistent with, like we said, I think we both said in our first segment with the Marner, is would you trade Marner for anyone who's taken a few picks after him? And we both said yes, but we both mentioned different defensemen. Like if you were to do that today, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd trade the GOAT for Theodore today. That would be a pretty lopsided trade. But and then I went so the GOATs played 168 games. Theodore at number 26 has played 264 games. And then at the 30th pick, Ryan Hartman, picked by Chicago, has played 314 games. And then you go through that entire second round, and there's not a single player who you would say the Leafs, if the Leafs had taken him, they'd be better off. Like, it was a really, really thin second round. Like,
No, I agree.
Yeah, you have to go all the way to the third to find guys like Pesci and guys like later round picks that panned out. So it was a pretty spotty draft. Oh, and I want to read a Dave Nonis quote, because the day of the draft. Read the U18 gold medal team that he played for Canada. He played a pretty significant role there, Nonis said of Gauthier. He played important minutes. He does have offense. The two-way part of his game is what we found attractive. We don't expect he'll be with us shortly, but he's come a long way in a short amount of time. He was playing midget hockey not too long ago. We'll bring him into the rookie camp, try and get him going in the right direction. How long is it going to take? It's going to take as long as it takes, which was a pretty good take, because they did just wait. They waited a long time for him, but he did make a kind of a misquote on his offensive ability there. So
fair.
Yeah. So so that's the GOAT draft. I think, like, as far as did they swing and miss? No. I mean, I think they took what was available in that, around that spot.
Safe player.
It was a safe player. It wasn't a great draft in that late first round, and so the story's not told completely on Frederik Gauthier yet. The guy might end up being a Stanley Cup champion for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You never know.
Maybe.
What about that? What about that order by the City of Toronto today to not give out any event permits till the end of June minimum?
Well, I saw that doesn't include sporting events, but clearly if the City of Toronto is not letting any events happen, they're not going to allow 20,000 people to go into the Scotiabank Place.
That's right. And I think what they're doing with that is that they're taking care of their own business, right? And they're not going to speak for the pro sports leagues, and the pro sports leagues will likely follow suit, but they'll make their own announcements. The City of Toronto wasn't going to make the announcement for Major League Baseball.
They're considering like going and playing like a tournament like in a neutral location, like that's being a potential talked about. I saw that on the because the NBA is thinking about that, and Pierre LeBrun mentioned that on the Insiders today. So
right to have a playoff.
Yeah, like go to a neutral location.
Yeah. Well, I think the sport that has floated that idea out there as a serious topic has been the English Premier League.
Huh?
They are seriously considering pretty much sequestering all the players, isolating them in a safe location, and having them play out their season or their playoff in a condensed form. But
that's like a pretty big commitment, though, from the guys, like to be away from their family and everything, and do that.
That was a counterpoint that I heard argued. Yeah, it's like, why should these guys do that? Like, that's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot to ask. If you're asking them to go away for 2 months, and like go to somewhere remote and do this for TV, like, I don't know, it's a big commitment.
But do you like getting paid?
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, that's it. And how much do you just not want to play your sport? Like, there's a time when these guys are just going to want to play their sport. Like you listen to guys like that we listen to regularly on the radio, like Jamie McLennan and Ray Ferraro and O-Dog. Like, they really, really regret losing that 1 year of their career. Like, a lot of guys, that's a lot of money. A lot of those guys lost by missing a year of their careers, and stats and potential future earnings. So yeah, it's very multi-layered.
It is.
It is. All right. Well, should we reconvene in 2 days and talk about the Morgan Riley draft 2012?
That's a no-brainer conversation.
Is it? I haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah, I have.
All right.
Morgan Riley will go first overall.
Well, maybe we'll combine 2 years at once. Let's look at maybe 2012, 2011.
Okay, could do that.
And we'll break down the Brian Burke quote right after the draft that says, if we were picking number 1, we'd have taken him also at number 1.
Oh, like if you look back at it, he would go first overall.
If you redraft it, but if you were sitting there in that GM chair and you had the first pick, would you have taken Morgan Riley based on the draft rankings and everything you knew about all the players? That's interesting.
It is interesting.
We'll break that one down. Maybe if we're going to do 2 years at once, that's maybe the day you should pick to drink.
Well, maybe we'll do this on Saturday then.
Okay, yeah. Let's do it Saturday. What is it? Tuesday now? So, I gotta go until Saturday.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That's it. I just got handed a beer by Reg. You just went to category 12 and got the Steady State Tangerine and Cassis Sour. It just came out today.
Very nice.
Supporting our local breweries. And the new IPA, the new Chromatic. You had that, right?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe. So went and got a couple 8-packs of that. A couple 4-packs. 8 total. All right.
All right.
Go Leafs, go.